Good morning. I'm Deborah DeBoer, Director of Special Projects here, and this morning my special project is the pleasure of doing a podcast with Coco Harris from Compass, one of our very fine agents. I was trying to think about when I first met you, and I think it's probably 5 or 6 years ago when I first started here at NASBAR. You were in one of the first classes that we did.
Oh, I love that.
I also use your name all the time.
Yes.
Because you have to register your name because you use a diminutive of your name.
Correct.
When you market yourself. So it's always Coco Harris that I talk about. So there may be people who've heard of you that have never met you, but I talk about you all the time, so I wanted to tell you that.
Well, thank you.
Anyway, thanks for being with us this morning. I thought I'd start by asking you to introduce yourself, how you got into real estate, and I'll even add to, why are you staying in real estate? Talk a little bit about that.
Okay. I got into real estate like many realtors do, where this is a sort of third act for me. And but I grew up in a real estate family. So my mom sold real estate in Connecticut for over 40 years. It was her career, and something that I never thought that I would do. But when I was at a point in my life where I had stepped away from the corporate world for a while and was trying to figure out what my next act was going to be, corporate America really didn't want to pay me what I felt I was worth, and I was struggling finding a job. And my mom kept saying, you should sell real estate. You should sell real estate. And my whole career has been based in sales. And I just kept thinking, but I don't want to work 7 days a week, as many hours as she worked, et cetera. I couldn't imagine that when my kids were little, et cetera. But I finally embraced it. And while I do work often 7 days a week, it has brought me so much personal satisfaction in a way that I absolutely never expected. And I feel so incredibly grateful to actually, for the first time in my career, be doing something that I truly love. Every day, I love my job. And a lot of people can't say that.
Why do you love your job?
It starts, the fundamentals of what your day is. I love that every day is different. So today, here I am filming a podcast with you. I mean, that's unusual and cool. I'm going to leave here and go meet a HVAC contractor at a listing. From there, I've got a showing appointment. I need to go home and sit at my desk and work on the newsletter I'm going to send out. So I'm not tied to my desk all day. I'm moving about. I'm doing different things. And then the one area of my life that brings me such personal contentment is my own home and what happens within my home. And so the fact that I get to be a part of helping people buy a home and experience that same joy that I have, and then also it turns into a financial asset, and to have the responsibility of helping people then sell that asset and continue to build wealth. It's a huge responsibility that I feel incredibly lucky to be a part of that process.
Thank you. It's interesting that so many of the realtors who are doing this and feel that way come from real estate families. And it's interesting that you talk about, I didn't think I wanted to do what my mom did.
Right.
From the child's perspective to a grown-up's perspective is very interesting with this. When you started, because now you were from Connecticut, you came here.
Yes.
Did you have a big sphere of influence when you got here?
Well, I wasn't really sure how I was going to build my business, because while I had a great network of friends, how was I going to get those friends to trust me as a real estate advisor, and also put myself in a position that I felt that I knew enough to advise somebody and share my experience. Mm-hmm. So that took a while to build up. But one of the very first things I did, which on the North Shore in particular, we have open houses. We have broker opens on Tuesdays. And I just dedicated myself to going to open houses and learning.
Explain what that is.
So when a broker has a new listing, typically in the North Shore, the listing comes on the market on a Monday, and then the broker will have an open house that's open to the brokerage community to come through and see it on a Tuesday between 9:30 and 115. And pre-COVID, we would have 32 homes that could be open and available in the New Trier Township, which is primarily where my business is done. Now we're lucky if there's 8 homes to go see. So you really had to pick and choose what you were going to go see. So I always made sure I went to see homes that were open, and I still do, especially in my neighborhood, in the town that I live in. And then if I'm working with a buyer that's in a certain price range and there's homes for sale in that price range, I go to see those. And it's never a waste of time, because down the road, you can use that home as an experience for comps. And as we all know, photos don't tell the whole story.
They sure certainly don't.
You have to be in the home, see the home, feel the home, how's it situated on the lot, the whole experience of it. And so to be able to view those homes builds a wealth of knowledge. And that is really how I started my business, was just learning our inventory.
It's really interesting to me that when I have brand new agents that come in now, and I'll say, go see if there are a broker open in your neighborhood and go do them. If you can, try to go in a car with an agent who's experienced.
Yes.
And go with them.
Yes.
And they look at me like I have 2 heads. Why would I want to do that?
Right.
I'm seeing all the pictures.
Right.
No, you don't understand. There's this thing called on-the-job learning. And in a classroom, I can't teach that to you. You have to go listen to the 2 experienced realtors talking about what happened on this street and why this house is this way and why this is this way. And did you know this? That's not written down anywhere.
Right.
I think that's so critically important.
I also think the thing that's really important is building your relationships with other brokers, and not just the brokers within your own firm, but the brokers that are selling in the community that you're also selling in. And so by going out to the broker open houses, even if you don't have a lot of business yet, and you walk in, and I always say, hi, my name is Coco Harris with Compass. And I introduce myself, and it's funny because it drives me crazy, because a lot of other brokers will just be like, oh, hi, I'm Sally. I'm like, Sally who? With what, even though they're the broker holding the open house, they're not necessarily the broker that's the listing broker. And if I don't know them, I want to meet them. And so it's really important to get out there, introduce yourself, make connections, see and be seen by the other brokers, because it is going to be a transaction at some point with another broker that is going to help your client either buy a house or sell a house. And even if you haven't done a lot of business, but they've seen you out on the tour, there's a trust factor there. Like, oh, she really does do this full time. She really is dedicated to this. And that's something else that has definitely helped me in my career, is building those relationships.
One of the other things I say to people, and I try to be brutal about it, I suppose, I say, it's very hard. It's so much harder if I'm talking to you, but I've never actually met you.
Right.
I can yell at you pretty easily. I can be nasty. I can
right.
But if I've met you before and I liked you before, this whole transaction is going to go so much more smoothly.
Yes.
It's really interesting, and that's another one that I get looked at like, what, can't we just text her? No. You can't just text people in this. You need to know them.
Right.
Yes, so I think that's lovely. How long did it take you? Sometimes I'll ask this. How long did it take you to get your first transaction? New agents always want to know.
It was 6 to 8 months, maybe.
Okay.
That's
not
unusual. It was a buyer. It was a friend of mine who referred a friend of hers to me.
Okay.
And I'm not sure, even to this day, if either one of them knew it was my very first transaction.
All right.
But I have that client I've done additional business with.
Okay. Much of your business now referral business?
It is all referral business almost.
All referral business.
Yeah, it really is. From a friend referring me
to
do
this.
Yes.
Even with all the referral business, what are you doing to market yourself now?
Oh gosh, really, it's interesting. So a couple of years ago, I started working with a real estate coach who has really helped me. And one of the things he had us do, an exercise, was really look at our previous 12 months or 18 months, our spend, where we had spent money, and then look at all of the transactions we had done, and did those transactions come from where we had spent money? And so I had spent a period of time where I was spending money on marketing, on postcards, or, I don't know, some of this random stuff. And I realized that 100% of my client business came from within my sphere. And so I've really changed how I do my marketing, in that I just market to my sphere, because they're my most valuable asset. And so I have, I annually, on my clients who have bought homes with me, I send them flowers in the month that they had, bought a house. Mm-hmm. And I do it every year. And so that list grows and that expense grows. But it's a way for me to stay in touch with them and acknowledge, it's another year that you've been in your house. And I do different things where I do, on National Neighbor Day, I might, drop, 22 gifts off at neighbors in my vicinity, because those are the people that are most likely to hopefully list their house with me. Mm-hmm. So I really focus on the people I know, which also feels most comfortable to me, in terms of interacting with the people I already know, as opposed to people I don't know.
You said something about you're sitting at your desk working on your newsletter. You do a newsletter as well?
I do a newsletter monthly.
And what's in your newsletter?
So
is it a digital or a...
It's an email newsletter.
Email newsletter.
Yes. And one of the things I have to say, Compass does a great job setting up an incredible template. And so part of that is real estate news stories. Then there's local things that are happening in Chicagoland. And then you're able to craft it to yourself, where you're able to, talk about recent sales. But I always start it much like your weekly Sunday email, where there's a personal piece to it. And that's the hardest part for me, to come up with what I want to say, and always the last piece that I fold into it. I only do it once a month, so I have such huge respect for you writing your email once a week to all of us, which
That's my next job today. That's where I will be sitting at my desk.
I do love reading it, so thank you for sending it out. But just figuring out a way that people, to connect with my sphere. And it's interesting because I do get great feedback from it, and people connect with different topics. I have clients who've said to me, "Oh, I love it when you give me all the numbers. I want the financials, what's going on in the market." And then other people say, "Oh, I love it when you tell a personal story." So I switch it up.
It's really interesting to me that I started that, quite honestly, Coco, because I was mad one day.
Yeah.
I was mad that we were sending all these emails out and all these newsletters out.
Yeah.
And then you look at the numbers of who actually opened them and read them, and I thought, well, this is enough. I'm just going to be... I talk for a living. I can write for a living as well.
Right.
And what we have found is it is that personal touch that makes the difference with whether people read them or they don't.
Right.
And I know it works because I'll walk into an office, and I've taught so many people. I'd like to say I remember every person's name, and I remember about them, but often not their name. And they come up to me and say, or yesterday I had some people in class and they said, "Oh, you're the woman that writes to me every Sunday." Yes, that's me. So it's fascinating to me that much of the other, what we think is really important information they should be looking at.
Right.
I don't care. And they're looking for some of that personal touch and staying with that. I think that's some of the things that the newer agents really struggle with. How to be personal about stuff like that.
Right.
Interesting. Are you doing any video? Doing anything video?
Not really. I work with a great woman who helps me with my social media, and she would love for me to do more video.
This video thing is hard.
It is hard.
I don't like it in some ways, because then I see myself on video and I think, oh dear.
I know.
But I have one video that I make it using as an example where I was twiddling my thumbs during the whole video like this, and I think, oh, why did someone let that go out? I don't even look at, I trust Michael, and we have a media specialist here. I don't even look at it before they send it. I think if I said bad words, they would cut that out for me.
Right.
But then I saw it on Facebook, and there I am twiddling away. And our social media girl said, "That's great. It's good that you were doing that. People don't want to see you be perfect. They want to see you be a human being."
It's true.
I'm having some trouble with that. I said, please don't video me if I'm twiddling my thumbs. It's crazy. And then she said, that's what you really look like. It may not be what you think you look like.
Right.
But that's what you really look like. Other people have already seen you. That was kind of an interesting thing for me to grab hold of. Other people have already seen you. So that's, whether you're comfortable with it or not.
Right.
They're already used to the way you look.
We are, people choose to work with us because they connect with us in an authentic manner. And so I do feel like if I do get into video more, which probably I will at some point, I just need to find a way to be authentic and be another extension of myself. And part of that is probably just with practice, as with anything.
As with anything. I would agree with that. I'm so much, Michael will tell you, I'm so much better now doing this than when I started.
Right.
And every time I learned, for example, I learned that I twiddle, so now I sit with quiet hands. And in my head, Coco, that's what I'm saying to myself, be careful of your hands. Be careful of your... And the interesting things that you learn when you're changing into a different way of presenting yourself. Even that now I know we're also doing where people can just listen to us. That's an interesting challenge for us as well, because I was doing a lot of like leaning over and like a little tap or much more, ahs. No, if they're listening, they don't need to hear all those. You have to tilt it just a little differently.
Yeah.
I like this whole video thing because it's this new thing that I've had to learn how to do. That's been the most interesting thing.
Right.
So good luck to you doing this. We talked a little bit before we started about changes in the industry. There's a lot of anxiety going on in the industry. You having a lot of that anxiety?
The unknown is always scary. I touched on the fact that I've been working with a real estate coach, and that has been the greatest gift because he, in probably the fall of 2022, first informed us, the group of people that he was coaching, what was going through the court system at the time. And it was shocking in that moment. And he kept saying, it doesn't matter what the outcome of this is, it's going to change your industry. And you need to be prepared for it. You need to get ahead of this. You need to learn how to feel confident in sharing your value proposition. And so a year later, when the verdict came out in October, while it still instilled some fear in me, I felt so much more prepared. And this is my full-time job. There is no plan B. So changing with the times, learning, pivoting, getting better is the only option forward. So I have also, I think, had the great benefit of, for the last couple of years, buyers that are coming into the North Shore, it is such a competitive market that they need to be aligned with the right broker. And buyers have been interviewing agents for a while. At least I have been on the receiving end of having
I haven't heard that before.
I have been interviewed, I would say, by 80% of my buyer agents. And some of those, most of those are introductions that come from another client or a friend. So it's a nice warm lead that's coming my way. But we also work in an industry where everybody knows a realtor, right?
Yes.
And so that buyer may have said to 4 friends, who should I work with? And they're going to get 4 different recommendations, and then they call 4 different brokers. And so I have been doing Google Meets and Zoom calls and having to do presentations online and having to figure out a way to connect and communicate with a buyer to have them choose to work with me for a little while. So now I just have to add in the new layer of we have to have a signed buyer agreement. And while that is new, it doesn't really worry me. And I kind of equate, the way I think about it is there are different professionals that we all work with in our own personal lives, whether we need to have an attorney, or I think of like my accountant. I have an LLC and an S Corp, and my husband is in a commission-only job, and our taxes are complicated, and tax law is not something I'm familiar with. It's not something I want to learn about. I don't have the time for it. I am willing to pay an elevated fee to have access to my accountant, to have him help me in a way that I couldn't do my taxes, etc. And it's really no different in the real estate world. I understand real estate and can help guide somebody through a transaction in a way that my clients don't understand it. They don't have the time to do it on their own. And I'm offering a service, and with that comes a fee. And my fee might be more elevated than another person's fee, but I feel that I'm offering a different level of service. And I feel really confident when I'm talking with my buyers as to what that fee is going to be, no different than when I'm talking with my sellers as to what that fee is going to be.
I love that. A couple things that you said. One is that you like to keep learning. One of the other things I'm discovering about people who are good at their jobs, they never stop.
Right.
There's always something new to be learning, and they like it. They like the fact that there's something new and interesting.
Well, this is an industry, and I have the benefit of having watched my mom go through this at a time where there was no computers, there was no MLS. I mean, maybe there was an MLS. I don't understand how it worked, but she would go into her office once a week and flip through books and write down addresses of new listings that came on the market. Mm-hmm. I can't even
I'll show you one.
I can't even understand that.
One in the training room. I'll show you what it is. Yes.
And so is that going to be one of the things that brings me a little bit of anxiety right now is that I can go into the MLS and I can see the homes that are available for sale, and I can see what the offer of compensation is in the MLS. So at some point this summer, that's going to go away.
At some point.
And that is going to feel a little uncertain. It's going to unmoor us all. Where are we going to find that information? It's going to feel a little bit like we're going back to 45 years ago when my mom had to go into her office once a week and flip through a book just to see what a listing was. But it all evolved, okay? And so we will evolve with this, and we will figure out a new way to do it. We don't know what that new way is going to be yet, but it will present itself. This is an opinion because I'm trying to keep really careful with people when I talk about what I know that is actual an opinion.
Right. I think we have 2 or 3 years of kind of hubba-dubba.
Yeah.
And then everyone will go, oh, I don't know what we were all fussing about. This is just the way we do it.
Yeah.
They'll have forgotten that they ever did business a different way. It will just be the normal course of business.
Right.
But I think we have an interesting 2 years ahead of us making these changes here. The other thing you said is you're very clear on your value proposition. When you talk to people in a Zoom, are you willing to share? Will you share what your value? If I said, so Coco, tell me what your value proposition is. Can you do that pretty succinctly?
Oh gosh. Well, it comes with experience. It comes with knowledge. It comes with one of the things that I really do talk to my clients about, that when you work with me, you get me. I have built my business in a way that I have a great wealth of experience, yet I still have the time to dedicate to my clients in a way that when a buyer is working with me or a seller is working with me, the greatest compliment I receive at the end of the transaction is that they feel that they were my only client at that time. And so I feel that I'm able to provide a service in this, it's this micro moment in their life that for them, this real estate transaction is all consuming. And I want to be the one that we can't make it a stress-free experience, because that is just a ridiculous promise. But I can lead them through the process in a way that I am constantly a step ahead of them. I am telling them what their next to do is. And most people like to feel like they're sort of checking boxes off on a list as we go through the process. And they want to feel confident that they're making a right decision or a good decision. And I'm able to frame with my perspective what's going on with the market, what the norm is, so that they can feel confident in decisions that they're making.
This is a hard one, and maybe you don't have one. What's the most fun transaction you ever had?
Oh gosh, one of my happiest transactions was working with a buyer that, and this was in the pre-COVID world when, sellers were struggling with what the value of their home was, and every dollar matters all the time.
All the time.
But in this particular situation, the seller was very tied to their list price. And my client loved the house, but could not afford the full list price. And the house was sitting on the market, which was telling me it's probably not priced where it's going to sell. And so we wrote our offer. We put in the best offer that they could put in. We could not negotiate higher. And the seller said, no, thank you. And we just said, okay, we are here. When you are ready, we are here. And it took 4 weeks. And then the list agent called me back and said, I think my clients want to sell to your buyers. And it was a first home purchase for my client. They had been in a rent living in Wilmette for like 10 years. And they had 3 young kids and, grade school to middle school age. And it was a really exciting purchase for them. I think, I can't remember the price of the house, but it was probably about $450,000. So it's far from my biggest or most exciting sale, but that was just a great win.
I love that you said this micro moment. I keep saying to people that you are with your clients for this period of time in an utterly intimate relationship with your clients. And some of, again, I get this, what is she talking about? And I think you just don't know yet. That you will know more about their family, their finances, who likes who in the family, who doesn't like who, what in-law they're mad at in this period of time. And then I had a smart agent who said, well, that's good that you have them in this intimate period of time. But one of the older agents said, you need to hold on to some of that to build that referral business. Because I think that referral business is what you're talking about. You're not a member of a big team.
No.
Why?
Well, I help run a little team. And for me, I am in real estate because I love to help people buy and sell houses. I do not love the business side of it in terms of, paperwork or managing other people. I want to help people buy and sell real estate. And so, if I were running a huge team, I would be much more on the business side of things. It would take from my time to be able to actually work and interact with clients. And that's not what I want to do. There are there's great opportunities with running a large team, but that's not my goal.
Okay, interesting. Because if you started as teams are the last 10 years that they have really absolutely exploded with teams.
I do have a couple people on my team, and I do think that that is the future of real estate, is the solo agent all by themselves. It's hard because we can't work 365. We can't not go on vacation. We can't not go away for a weekend. And if you have a trip planned during that micro moment that you have a client that is, has to buy a house or is in the process of selling their home, and it interferes with the time when you're trying to go away, that is incredibly stressful, because we are entitled to go away just like everybody else is entitled to have a vacation or plan a trip. And so if you have that trusted built-in teammate that you're able to have step in and seamlessly help you in that moment, It really enables the transaction to go more smoothly, and then of course enables you to actually step away on your weekend away or whatever. Exactly.
And have a life.
Exactly.
What advice would you give to a brand new agent who's coming in? What would you tell them to do today? What would be the first thing?
The best advice I received was from one of my greatest mentors, which is Joanne Hudson. And
I know Joanne Hudson,
of course.
Yes.
I worked for Steve and Joanne for many years before we moved over to Compass together. And she told me two things. One, go out on tour and learn the inventory. And number two, she said, if you always keep the client at the center of the transaction, what the client's best interest is, not the sale of a house or the purchase of a house. What is in the best interest of the client? Your business will grow because people will trust you. And it's always, that is the center of the transaction, the client and what is in their best interest, not the sale of a house.
It has been lovely to spend the morning with you. Thank you so much,
Thank you
Coco.
for having
I really
me.
appreciate it. This was very fun. Just a note, the views of our guests may not reflect the views of the North Shore-Barrington Association of Realtors.